Welcome to the first episode of the year for the Experience Action podcast. And it's that episode you look forward to every month. It's our January CX Pulse Check episode for 2025. As always, I am so excited because we have a very special co host where we will be breaking down a few things in the news that hopefully all of us in the customer experience world can maybe learn from, lessons, inspiration, to dos, and maybe some not to dos as well. So, why don't you help me welcome our co-host to the stage here? This is Andrew Carothers is with us. Andrew, how are you?
Hi, Jeannie. I am doing great. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Happy 2025. And we were joking that it's only been a few days, but we're already kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to buy the trial, right? Like
Exactly.
I don't know. We're still kicking the tires on this one, but
Yeah.
Andrew, now you've been in the customer experience field a long time. You were most recently with Cisco, and you have a lot of experience in digital experience. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about who you are with our audience.
Sure. I've been in CX for about 15 years. I joined Cisco in a marketing capacity. I think a lot of people in CX come from maybe customer support or marketing. I kind of think of those as the parents of the CX discipline. So
Mhm.
I came in from marketing, and then when Cisco created a CX function about 15 years ago, I was one of the 50 co-founders of that. And 50 may sound like a large number, but out of 65,000 employees, it was a very small number. So helped to create the CX function at Cisco, and always had an emphasis on the digital component. And originally, it was digital as a way to scale to our thousands of partners and tens of thousands of customers. But I think over the past certainly 15 years, but I would say even 5 years, so just predating the pandemic, we've seen a shift in the industry of what our customers want. So digital is not just a way to scale to the maybe the lowest dollar customers, sort of the long tail, but rather customers want a digital first experience. We'll get into this a little bit later. They want to be able to connect with humans as well. So I'm not saying digital
Mhm.
only, but the role of digital in what our customers experience, not just in tech and not just in B2B, but in a B2C world as well, has grown in prominence as well. So my background in CX is it goes back 15 years and starting the function and really delving in on the digital side. Also, because of Cisco's business being very partner focused, very heavily focusing on how to create a CX function that operates directly with customers, but also through our partners.
So important. And I think B2B and tech and all of those things, there are so many layers, right, to the customer experience.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I sometimes I don't know if it's privileged or just because I've been around a while. Looking back on the evolution of digital as even a property, even an idea, it's really exciting to see. And we're going to talk about a few things today that
Yep.
relate to all of this. We're covering a lot of ground today. We're covering how to connect with customers, predictive customer experience, all sorts of things. So I think we should dive right in. What do you think?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Lot to talk about.
So, our first story today is really right in line with what we were just talking about. So, this is from Gizmodo, and the headline is AT&T says it will now credit you for outages and long customer service wait times. Now, what this doesn't say in the headline is how they're doing this. This is essentially a proactive thing that they're doing. If you have an outage for more than 20 minutes, they are saying that they're just going to credit your bill for a day's worth of internet service. And if you wait for customer service in their call center for more than 5 minutes, they're going to send you a $5 Visa gift card. Now, this may not sound like much, but I was intrigued by how proactively they're offering to do this. And there have been some really great studies lately showing that this does help with longevity. This does help with customer loyalty. But it's a complicated business, AT&T. They have a lot of customers. So I'm curious on your perspective of this, on like the execution of it and the strategy of it and the weighing the pros and cons of this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a smart move by AT&T. Full disclosure, I'm an AT&T mobile customer. So Um, I think it's a smart move for a couple of reasons. The main reason is AT&T, Spectrum, other cable and phone companies, they're now in a world where they can see competition coming.
Mhm.
So they, when the bells were broken up years ago, it sort of created a little bit of competition, but not much. But now with Starlink and other similar type of over the top providers coming, they can see that even in rural areas, there are options for their customers. And lots of times these utilities have poor reputations in their customers' minds. I think that, and so when those customers get options to move, I think they're ready to go to try something else. I
Mhm.
cut the cord in my own home from a cable perspective a little while ago for exactly the same reason. So therefore, I think they're being proactive, but it's also proactively defensive
Mhm.
for the difficult competition that they're going to face in the very close up, in the not too distant future. Let me put it that way.
I
So
totally agree.
so what I think it ties on here is, what do customers want? So I don't have knowledge of, whether the what the financial impact of this is going to be in terms of potential outlays of cash, but let's assume that they've done the research to determine what they think the likelihood of their rate of not being able to meet the expectations they're setting are, and the cost of that, et cetera. And they're weighing that against some expectation of what the results on the positive side, the return on this investment in building a better customer experience will be. So let's assume they've done that calculation. It says a couple of things. One, there is a calculation for what the return on the expected improvement in customer expectation will be. So I don't want to gloss over that AT&T has probably done that calculation and then made the move to move forward,
Mhm.
because that looks at sort of not only current operational data, how many days and how many customers does that affect that we are currently having outages, what will be the impact of this, what improvements do we think we can make, and therefore shortening the number of days, shortening the number of customers affected, and therefore the economic impact of that, right? That's going to be hard work on their part to do
Mhm.
the back end operational improvements to solve some of these issues more rapidly than they're solving them today and have for the past few years. That is
Absolutely.
difficult work. So, number one point, love that they are presumably looking at determining the financial impact of improving the experience they provide their customers. Number two, um, uh, they've got a long road ahead when it comes to the back office operations, the operational improvements they need to make. That's the critical component, in my view, to an improved customer experience or even
Mhm.
maintaining an existing customer experience. What people oftentimes focus on is the customer facing component of the experience. What's the journey mapping? What are the moments that matter?
Mhm.
How easy is it to navigate
The tip
information
of
towards,
the
et cetera.
iceberg, right?
Totally important, but cannot be done effectively. So
That's right.
acting on that and providing that front end experience customer facing can't be done effectively without connecting on the back end data sources,
Yep.
business teams and the silos associated with those, breaking those down, platforms and people.
Tools, technology, processes, it all
So
is
hard to
together. Yep.
do, especially for a legacy company like AT&T,
Yep.
where they are ingrained in decades of databases that don't talk to others. So like, kudos to them for them to take this off. I think they're doing this because, as I said, the impending competition lets them know we don't have a choice because we're going to lose a lot of customers if we don't do this.
Right. I agree. I think that, the other part of that disruption is that they are not going to your point, they're a big legacy company. They are not as nimble as a startup who
Right.
might be right now trying to disrupt the industry or, popping up from one of the spin-offs of Starlink or something like that. So I think that whenever we think about investing in customer experience, we have to think about it as a way to invest in innovation. And innovation only happens, to your point, with all the stuff in the background. We have to figure out how do we actually execute this. So I think it's a great move. I'm going to be watching it closely, and I'm also curious because in this industry, as you know, people follow, right? Like other brands are going to say, "Wait, they're doing what? We need to do what?" And who's going to try this out? Who's going to follow? But I think it shows how, customers are not just expecting the bare minimum and they're not willing to put up with it. They know that there are options. And so if you are not competing against the customer who's about to leave you, then you're really not competing.
Yep.
you are you're
Right.
just, waiting for them to leave you. And this next story, I'm so interested in this one because I think it's like we've been promised flying cars, right? We've been promised the Jetsons
Right.
for
Absolutely.
years. Who doesn't want a robot maid, right? And we've talked about some of those innovations coming out, but this one I think is pretty intriguing because it also shows the potential partnerships, which you have so much experience with. But this is from The Verge, and the headline is Samsung smart fridges will use AI to suggest groceries to buy on Instacart. And essentially, what they're doing here is those big, beautiful refrigerators that now have screens where you can literally look inside your refrigerator. Instead of just a camera, they have an AI camera now that basically can identify. I think right now the number is not very big. It's like 37 different food items, including fresh produce and things like this. And then they have an Instacart partnership where if you have an Instacart list going, it can say, "Oh, you ran out of eggs. I put the eggs you like on your Instacart order." And there's a lot here to love, and it also makes me think about sometimes when we have these conveniences and then we kind of forget and we don't turn them off. And then suddenly we might be getting like, "Oh wait, I didn't want to order the eggs because I'm going out of town," or, all those things. But I just think the partnership aspect of this is really intriguing. And Instacart is really investing in that partnership models. They have partnership with like Home Depot and a few others now. So what's your take on this? Do you think our refrigerators are going to become sentient and take over?
I mean, I'm giggling because there's so many funny elements to this story. I
Mhm.
can imagine, as you pointed out, somebody comes home from vacation and they've got stores and stores of eggs and apples and things. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've all gone on vacation and forgotten to shut off the mail, right? And then you come back
Mhm.
and there's a pile.
For sure.
So like that's kind of funny. And also, this is sort of peak innovation and peak, laziness too. So
But
um,
laziness equals convenience, right? Like that's
right,
really what
right.
what that means.
From a CX perspective and a partnership perspective, I do love this, however, because
Mhm.
I I love a couple of things from a foundations of business perspective, which CX is should be interwoven into at all companies because of everything we've been discussing. But there's this concept of right there, Samsung looking and saying we're not just selling refrigerators. We are, and
Yes.
starting from a CX perspective to understand what is it that our customers want, right? Do they
Mhm.
simply want a box that of a certain size and color that will keep their produce cold, and or do they want something else? Let's
Mhm.
find out. And by talking to customers and surveying customers, and I would assume using AI to analyze data so they can be more predictive, not just in terms of what you're talking about in terms of the functionality of the refrigerator, but in terms of predicting what do our customers do, what do they buy, what features, et cetera, to then get a deeper, better understanding of their customers, to know they are looking to not just store what they've bought at a grocery store, like keep it fresh,
Mhm.
but also to what the friction points in that customer journey from I need food to I'm getting food to I'm storing it so that it's fresh when I'm going to use it in my home, and
Right.
understanding that whole process and the role that the refrigerator they sell plays as part of that process. So like that's
Mhm.
step one, is from a CX perspective, understanding their customers and looking at it holistically as opposed to in the little box in which the refrigerator sale plays.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And I think the fault that you're pointing out is how many organizations start like they have product teams out the wazoo, right? Like they
Yeah.
they are obsessed with their products, but they think that the product is what somebody's buying, but really it's what we can do with the product, or how it helps our lives, how it's more convenient, easier. It makes me feel a certain way, right? Like I can show people, look, my refrigerator orders my groceries for me. Isn't that cool? Like
Right.
that makes people feel a certain way. So I think it's a really important point. And it is one of the things that I personally love about the idea of journey mapping, because it forces those questions. It forces us to go through that process and think, what is actually happening here with the customer? They're not actually thinking, I mean, if you're doing a remodel, yes, you're thinking, oh, we need a refrigerator. But to your point, that could be I could get that on Craigslist,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get one, an avocado green from the 70s. It probably still works, right? So, so it's a
Yeah.
really, really good point.
Yeah, so from a product perspective, you're right. I mean, this helps distinguish them from competitors on a features and function capability.
Mhm.
But it also, I think you touched on something so important, which is the emotional component. It
Mhm.
helps them to not only from a features and function sort of say, I want to feel cool, I want to feel modern, innovative, etc., but also here they understand what I'm trying to do, which is not buy a refrigerator.
Right.
I'm trying to, I'm busy. I'm trying to take care of the house, the kids, the job, like whatever. I'm trying to simplify my life, and I think the
Yep.
focus on simplification is so critical for all CX approaches, as exemplified here. And
Yep.
then to touch on the partner side, I love that they looked at the broader journey and then looked at how can we simplify that? How can we bring simplification? How can we remove friction points in the broader journey? Whether it's a direct sort of feature or function we can add to our product, or whether it's by looking more broadly and then partnering more
Mhm.
broadly. So bring in an
Mhm.
Instacart, which makes perfect sense from a complementary
Yep.
service provider, but doing so in a way that sort of expands the footprint they have without spinning up a competitor to Instacart to try to keep it all in house. So I
That's right.
love that. It's like when an airline realizes we're not just in the business of flying people and goods elsewhere.
Mhm.
They then partner with hotels, rental cars, right? We're in the people and goods movement business.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even hotels, for example, that are like we're not just in the sort of short-term housing for people on trips, especially business people, the more profitable customer, but we are in the people connection business. So some hotels, even before the
Mhm.
pandemic, set up a sort of conference facilities that also include either individual or group remote meeting facilities.
Yep.
Like so,
Yep.
if you're going
That's
to
a
come
great
stay the
point.
night, great. But if you're just local and you need those facilities, great. We've got that too, right? Thinking more broadly about where they play, as opposed to I'm the center of the universe. My
Mhm.
business is the center of the universe, which is not a customer focused approach. That's an internal focused approach.
Yep. And I think in this specific example, Instacart customers are, Instacart customers. They have it on their phone. They always have a list going there. This is what
Yeah,
they do. And so they might not go to a Best Buy today and say, I need a Samsung fridge. But they might do that now. They might walk in and say, I'm going to request this because I know this is going to help me because this is the type of customer I am. So there's all sorts of interesting kind of overlaps. And it's very human when you get right down to it. It is very human. And it's about understanding, how do customers behave? What do we really want? And how can we best serve them in that moment in their journey? Like the way that they're living their lives. They're not actually focused on our products and services. They're just living their lives trying to do things. So,
right.
speaking of this might be my favorite story today.
It's mine. It's mine.
We have to get to this one because it's so goofy and fun. So, this you probably have heard about this one because it made quite a bit of news. But we're talking about the Waymo, the robo taxi. And this happened actually in Arizona, but it was for a man who lives in Los Angeles. And the headline from CBS News says LA man nearly misses flight as self driving Waymo taxi drives around parking lot in circles. And if you go to the site or if you just look it up, the video is everywhere because his name is Mike Johns. He actually recorded himself in this car while trying to connect to their customer service saying, I don't know what's happening. Did someone hack this? He couldn't even release the seatbelt. And he was just going around in a circle in this self-driving car. And the point that I thought was, I mean, it's a compelling story anyway, but his point when people have asked him about it, he said there just wasn't a lot of compassion or empathy from the person he talked to. And she was basically saying, I'm working on it, we'll get it fixed. And Waymo, in their defense, stated that it was only about 5 minutes. He did make his flight, but it created all this, and they didn't charge him for the ride and all of those things. But I think we are in a very specific time in our history as as humankind right now where we are starting to experiment with more and more of these automated tools that always required human stewardship really in for decades or even longer. And now we're making this move and the trust level is going up because these are working in a lot of ways, but then we have something that goes wrong, and it's like a whole new rule book for how to handle it. So what did you think about this one?
After I stopped laughing.
It is a funny video. It's, like, funny, and I was, like, anxious for him too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I agree with you. We are in a period of dramatic and rapid innovation, and there will be hiccups along the way. I think that being up in the San Francisco Bay Area, where Waymo has been doing testing for at least
Mhm.
a year, if not 2 years, I know there's a lot of testing that takes place before rolling out the car.
That's right.
So uh, that said, there will still be issues that come up. So the question then, right, really the meta question is, how do we then respond to those questions? And this is not only a sort of a philosophical question when it comes to dealing with problems that erupt with new innovative technologies, but even in our own businesses, our own lives, just with old school things happen, right? So
Mhm.
how does the supplier or the vendor or the service provider, how do they respond? So, which goes to the AT&T story at the beginning as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I think that there is a misperception that innovation or digital or technology is binary with the human element and empathy.
Mhm.
I think that it's a matter of execution. Sometimes that's how it's implemented, right? We're going to use a company says, internally, they don't say this externally. We're going to use digital tools, a chat bot, just simply
Mhm.
our website, whatever, emails. We're going to use digital channels to communicate with our customers proactively as well as from a troubleshooting perspective, as a way to cut costs. We're gonna cut out the human support element, and just force our customers, right? So I think that's a mistake, right? If you
Mhm.
make it binary like that's a mistake. I think the companies that will provide the type of customer experience that their customers want and expect, and given opportunities to leave to go to a competitor, demand, those companies that will be successful are the ones that combine the best of human with the best of digital, right? So
Mhm.
digital provides a much faster approach. So if somebody wants to go on a website and find information, or
Sure.
interact with a chatbot or whatever it might be, it's a much faster way to get information. So that's why a lot of people love it. It's really no different than going to the supermarket and using the self serve
Yep.
scanning versus
Yep.
standing in line. Um, that said, companies that provide a digital channel or multiple digital channels need to build those channels with human empathy in mind, meaning the actual building, the development of that channel, and
Yes.
the processes that are going to operate it moving forward need to be created in conjunction with the customers, customer interviews, customer data analysis, etc. So up front, before it even rolls out, it's built with the centered around the customer
Yes.
need.
Just like we were talking about with the refrigerator. Yeah.
Just like that,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
then And then, if something happens and a digital channel is first option, there needs to be a simple, easy, and easy to
Amen.
find option to connect with a human. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if that was the case with the Waymo guy,
Yeah.
but for most companies, right, just providing an easy way. I've seen companies that do this very well. I've been
Mhm.
frustrated with companies that don't do it well at all.
Mhm.
And then the other element, which is not new, is when customers connect with those humans, digital channel as well, but focusing on the human side, there needs to be value provided by that agent.
Yes.
So
Yes.
um,
Yes.
I have been struggling with my car manufacturer. I won't name them, who was supposed to send me an adapter for my electric car,
Mm.
and I've been waiting almost a year now for it,
Oh my
and
goodness.
it was supposed to come in October. Then it was December. Now it's January. I called customer support. The number says if you have questions about this specific
Mhm.
issue, call this number. So I called. Agent had no information to tell me.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
that's
That
frustrating.
is so
So
frustrating.
you got to build in the empathy into the process
Yes.
and into the digital component as well as the human component. And you have to have again that back end connectivity that we were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
so that when people connect with you, whether digitally or human based, that there's
Yeah.
value in that process.
And they
So
know where you are on your journey. They know exactly what you're dealing with, and I think the whole idea that we get so wrapped up in these innovations sometimes that we think it's all going to go exactly as planned. And whenever we're talking with clients about how to innovate and plan, I one of the big questions we need to ask is what if? What if this doesn't work? What if they can't reach somebody through that channel? What if that what if the chatbot is down? Where do they go? We have to really think through like what if it doesn't work?
yeah,
And I think that's what this highlights is that we sometimes we kind of fall in love with our own ideas and we think it's all going to work and we spend so much time and effort getting it right and we don't think about when things will go wrong, but they will, like that's life. We
right, right. You're so
that's how
right
it
about that.
goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
so right about that.
so, well, this was so fun, Andrew. I mean, let's do this again and
Yeah, I would love to because I love the opportunity to talk about sort of the fundamental practices of the discipline of customer experience
Yep,
from practical applications like this.
that's
I
right.
think it really helps people understand some of the big picture themes and processes that we
Mhm.
that we like to talk about.
Right. I always say it's really easy to say, "Just be nice to customers." Right? Like, that's easy to say, but
Yeah,
when you actually figure out what that means, it's a whole, profession.
hard to do.
So, yeah. Well, this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining me for CX Pulse Check. And if people want to know more about you, how can they reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. I love talking to people, so please do reach out, connect with me, and then we'll start a conversation.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that link is in our show notes as well. So thank you. And thanks to all of you out there for listening, for participating in the Experience Action podcast. Don't forget, you can always leave me a voicemail with your question that I can answer on a future episode at askjeannie.vip. And if you haven't already, check out the CXI Compass at experienceinvestigators.com to find out where you are on your CX journey and see what the next steps could be for you. Thank you so much. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to all of us listeners. And I really appreciate you here on episode 101 of the Experience Action Podcast.